you're looking at probably the most famous face on the planet. But the story of how she got so famous, it's not just about art, it's about a crime, an absolutely wild heist. And to really get that smile, we can't start in a museum. No, we've got to start at the scene of the crime. The date, August 21st, 1911. It's just another Monday morning at the Louvre in Paris, or so everyone thought. But in reality, the entire art world was just hours away from being completely flipped on its head. So how does it happen? I mean, really, how does the world's most famous painting just vanish? This wasn't just some piece of art. It was a national treasure. How does something like that just disappear from the walls of the most famous museum in the world? And the craziest part? When the museum opened that day, nobody even noticed she was gone. Not at first. It took hours before someone finally realized, hey, in the Salon Carré, where the Mona Lisa should be hanging, there's just an empty wall. Nothing but 4 iron pegs. The masterpiece was gone. Okay, so this theft causes an absolute global panic. But to really understand why everyone freaked out, we got to rewind a bit. We need to figure out what this painting was before it was stolen. What made it a masterpiece to begin with? All right, let's jump back in time. We're going to Renaissance Italy, and we're going to meet the woman, the legendary artist, and the game-changing technique that created this icon. So first things first, who was the Mona Lisa? Well, her real name was Lisa Gherardini. She was the wife of a pretty well-off cloth merchant in Florence, and honestly, she lived a pretty normal, comfortable life. Raised 6 kids, just a respectable woman of her time. She had absolutely no clue that her face would one day be more famous than pretty much any king, queen, or emperor in all of history. And the artist? Well, you know him, the one and only Leonardo da Vinci. But here's the thing. For Leonardo, this wasn't just some job he had to finish. He started painting her around 1503, but he never actually delivered the painting. Nope, he kept it for the rest of his life. He carried it with him everywhere he went, always tweaking it, always trying to make it perfect. He was totally obsessed with it.
So what was his secret? What was he so obsessed with? It's this technique he pioneered called sfumato. It literally means to go up in smoke. And that's exactly what it looks like. He blended colors and shadows so seamlessly that there are basically no hard outlines. It's this smoky, hazy effect that makes her expression feel so alive, like it's changing right in front of your eyes. That is the secret to that mysterious smile.
And you really have to appreciate just how radical this was for its time. Think about it. Most portraits back then were super stiff. You could see all the hard lines. They looked like, well, paintings. But Leonardo, he made something that felt like it was breathing. Her smile seems to shift, and she just kind of melts into this beautiful, weird landscape behind her. It was a complete revolution. So after Leonardo died, the painting's journey just got more and more interesting. It became part of the French royal collection. At one point, Napoleon Bonaparte himself loved it so much he hung it in his own bedroom. Can you imagine? By the time it finally ended up in the Louvre, it was already a huge deal, a true national treasure. But its biggest story, its leap to global stardom, was still yet to come. And that brings us right back to 1911 and that empty wall. The stage is set for the art heist of the century. And believe me, the story of how it happened is almost comically simple. So who's the criminal mastermind, the suave art thief who pulled this off? Well, there wasn't one. It was this guy, Vincenzo Peruggia. He was an Italian handyman, and the only reason he could pull it off is because he'd worked at the Louvre before. And get this for irony, his job had been to install the protective glass cases for the paintings, the very thing meant to keep them safe. His master plan was so simple, it's almost unbelievable. He literally just hid in a closet overnight. The next morning, he popped on a white smock like the other workers, walked right up to the Mona Lisa, lifted her off the wall, and took her out of her heavy frame. Then, he just stuck the painting under his coat and walked right out the door. Just like that. Gone. And this is where the story takes a turn. The theft didn't just create a crime mystery. It created a global phenomenon. In a weird way, the Mona Lisa's absence made her way more famous than her presence ever did. And she was gone for a long time. 2 whole years. For 2 years, silence. The police had nothing. They were completely stumped. The world's most famous painting had just vanished off the face of the earth. The media, of course, went absolutely wild. This was a global sensation. For the very first time, newspapers from New York to Tokyo were printing her picture. Millions of people who'd never even heard of her before suddenly knew her face. It got so crazy that people would line up for hours at the Louvre, just to stare at the empty spot on the wall where she used to be.
The police investigation was a total frenzy. They were so desperate, they started questioning everybody. They even brought in and questioned famous artists, including, and I'm not making this up, a young Pablo Picasso. I mean, nobody was off the table.
Then, after 2 long years, a break in the case. Perugia, who had been hiding the painting this whole time in a trunk in his tiny Paris apartment, finally makes a move. He takes it to Florence, Italy, walks into an art dealer's shop and tries to sell it. His excuse? He said he was a patriot, just bringing a stolen Italian treasure back home. The art dealer, thankfully, was smart enough to call the cops immediately.
And this is really the central twist of the whole story. It was the crime, the theft itself, that launched the Mona Lisa into superstardom. When she was finally returned to the Louvre, she wasn't just a masterpiece anymore. She was a celebrity, a survivor. Her return was treated like a hero's homecoming, with massive crowds cheering.
So, here we are today. After all that history, all that drama, why are we still so fascinated by her? What is it about this painting and its wild story that still matters?
Because when you get right down to it, her fame isn't just about the brushstrokes. It's about the incredible story that surrounds her. It's a story about everything: an artist's obsession, a technical revolution, a ridiculously simple crime, and the birth of a media superstar. She's not just a painting anymore, she's an entire drama packed into one frame.
And if you go to the Louvre today, you'll see she's back where she belongs. But things are different. She's protected by bulletproof glass now. You don't just go to see the Mona Lisa anymore, you go to witness her. She's this permanent cultural icon, and the crowds, well, they never stop coming.
Which really just leaves one final question, doesn't it? After 500 years, after Leonardo's obsession, Napoleon's bedroom, being stolen and hidden in a trunk, and becoming the most famous face in the world, what do you think she's smiling about?